a Super Bowl redo. Welcome to the KHOU 11 Newsroom. Jason Bristol, Luis Ortiz, Zack Tawatari, all here to talk about the upcoming Super Bowl matchup, as well as the Astros, another move made on Sunday, and we'll take your takes on Bobby Slowick and the offensive coordinator situation with the Houston Texans. Right now, we are here to talk Super Bowl matchup. You saw the game on KHOU 11. Chiefs beating the Bills and will now face the Philadelphia Eagles, a rematch, a redo from 2 years ago. One programming note, no Sports Extra tonight due to a special edition of the late night with the Late Show with Jim, what's his name? Stephen Colbert. Oh my gosh, the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Anyhow,
it's late.
Well, it's going to be late. Initial reaction to this matchup right now, which team are you picking?
I won't put you on the spot
Super
first.
Bowl. I gotta go with the Eagles. This is Philadelphia's year. It would be so sweet for them to upset the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I really think that Kansas City has shown some holes throughout the year. I think that the Eagles defense or the Eagles rushing attack will be able to break down the Chiefs defense, and I think that is really what's going to make the difference. Wearing down that Chiefs defense and then making a couple of opportune throws.
Yeah, man, look, after what we saw today from the Philadelphia Eagles against the Washington Commanders, I thought, man, this team is really good, right? I feel like it's a very well-balanced team. It has defense, it has offense. But then when you think that the Chiefs are just done, it's not their year, like you mentioned. They've shown holes throughout the whole year. They just continue to find a way to get it done. I actually thought the Bills were going to win today. However, you saw Kansas City, it continues. I think it's their coaching. They call the right plays, they have the right strategies, the tactics, everything, and that's just what takes them over the top. I'm going to take the Chiefs.
All right. What do you people think out there? Who are you picking? Which team do you think will win? Right now, the early odds are out, and the Chiefs right now favored by 1.5. And it's very interesting because it was a 2-point spread the last time these two teams met. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. So I have levels on mic 3.
I'm
Mike 4.
Must have been me.
Oh,
Do I need to redo my Super Bowl prediction?
it wasn't that good anyways.
All right.
Saquon Barkley
Uh-huh.
over the Chiefs defense. That's it in a nutshell.
Oh, what about the quarterback battle, though? Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes just having so much more experience.
I feel that this Eagles team is better than the Eagles team which the Chiefs
Yes.
faced last
Yes.
time. Is it good enough? Probably. Is it better than the Chiefs? We watch the Chiefs, and it doesn't matter the stage. They always seem to pull it out. And for me, it's just hard to bet or to pick against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and you mentioned coaching, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
He just seems to always dial up the right pressure at the right time.
And to Luis's point, you're not just playing the Kansas City Chiefs as a team, you're playing all of that experience. That's who you're playing against.
Right.
And that really does end up being the X factor, it seems like, the way that they're able to call the right play at the right time, the way that they're able to use the clock to their advantage. They're just a veteran team.
And that defense is just scary because when we look at what they did against the Texans, right, you think about, okay, how much they pressured C.J. Stroud, and you can say, okay, well, the Texans' offensive line really didn't protect them all year. But then they do it again against Josh Allen today again, and the Bills. You know, that last drive, that Buffalo drive in the fourth quarter, you know, there was 3 minutes and a half left in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo was able to do nothing. They weren't able to do anything. I mean, you saw it, and they had that one chance, right? It drops the pass at the end when Josh Allen just heaved it up. But I think the defense is really dialed in, and that's going to make the difference.
Here's some interesting numbers from betonline.ag. Of course, as soon as a big matchup is set, I get an email within minutes. BetOnline AG notes that the team to win has covered the spread in 9 of the last 10 Super Bowls, and 17 of 20. So I think this is the team which has gone on to win, maybe. The game has gone under in 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. Right now, the total is 45.5. It's gone under in 5 of the last 6. The team to score first has won 37 of the past 58 Super Bowls. 3 straight Super Bowls have been decided by a field goal. I know the last time these two teams met in the Super Bowl, it was close. My guess is it's going to be close again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be within a couple of points. I mean, I'd be surprised if it ends up being more than a 3-point difference, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a lower scoring game. I feel like defenses seem to have the advantage on the bigger stages. What about you?
Yeah, I think maybe more than 3 points.
Okay.
Not that close, but I will say maybe about a 7-point game, maybe a one score, at least a 1 touchdown game, I should say. But yeah, I think, look, when it's a Super Bowl, teams tend to be more conservative, right? They're not gonna risk as much. They know that there's so much at stake. So that's why a lot of times I feel like we get those lower scoring games. But however, both of these teams can play good defense, and I agree with you. I think it's going to be a tight game, a low-scoring game. I'd say maybe about 1 touchdown.
Last time they met in the Super Bowl was not a low-scoring game. I just pulled it up here, 38-35. That was the final. Obviously at State Farm Stadium when the Chiefs beat the Eagles. Last year was a 25-22 overtime win by the Chiefs. All right, so.
Which is probably possible. I mean, because – you know, we're here thinking it might be a low-scoring game. But
yeah.
Saquon Barkley going for 3 touchdowns today. They scored 7 rushing touchdowns, tying an NFL record. Philadelphia can put up points. You saw it today. Okay, maybe, yeah, against the Commanders, but they can put up points. They can score, and so can Kansas City. Although, I mean, you mentioned it earlier.
I was just going to bring it up. The most shocking statistic I've seen today is that this was the most points the Chiefs scored all season in one game. Yeah. That's nuts to me when you consider the weapons they have, the play caller they have, the quarterback they have.
They just find a way to win.
They do. All right. Let's move on now to the Texans. Bobby Slowick is no longer the offensive coordinator. There's a shakeup along the some of the members of the offensive coaching staff. I was surprised that DeMeco Ryans pulled the trigger on this, that he did this knowing how close he and Bobby have been, both coming over from the Niners. What was your level of surprise? You weren't surprised.
No.
Why weren't you surprised?
I think DeMeco kind of put the writing on the wall.
Oh, well, that's true.
In his exit interview.
Yeah.
He did say, look, we're going to have review things or whatnot, but there was one answer, and I don't have the transcript, and I don't remember the quote verbatim right now, but there was an answer he said where he just felt like the offense was lacking. He felt like the offense could have done more. And I think that was just like the writing on the wall. You had to kind of read between the lines where he was saying, look, this was not good enough. And he gave Bobby Slowick enough time to make the changes. And there's also an interview with Texans radio in which he says, like, he calls the offensive plays and he says, I just don't understand how we weren't able to stop that. And it's like, wow, DeMeco, a defensive guy, he's talking like he's an offensive coordinator when he's talking about breaking down offensive plays and whatnot. So I think from his responses and everything that he said at the end, to me, I took it as, okay, yeah, Bobby's not going to be here anymore.
I was surprised because I know that they're friends, right? I was surprised because of that. However, I also do see that DeMeco, or believe that DeMeco is going to do what's necessary. And although I was surprised, I give him a lot of credit because losing in the NFL, having that grace period is a very slippery slope, okay? And if the offense continued into the first 4 games of next year and they struggled, even if they bring someone else in and they struggle, that person will have a grace period. Bobby Slowick's had run out. The patience for that offense not scoring points had run out. And so from that respect, I give DeMeco a lot of credit for making a decision that I'm sure was tough for him, but he also realized that it was the best thing for the team and that core group of players in many ways, for the organization overall, I think.
For those of you out there watching, who would you like to see become the new offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans? Chip Kelly, that name has been mentioned out there. There's certainly some other very good play callers. I think this is the quote from D'Amico was, I think overall with Bobby, I saw some growth. I saw some improvement throughout the year.
That was the first one, but there
Okay.
was another one.
That one would have kind of, my spidey sense would have been tingling on that one because the improvement maybe at the beginning of the year, but towards the end of the year, there was very little improvement from what I could see.
It was also very concise the day that he said it. I mean, in the respect that he said it, having been there and hearing him say that, it was kind of a very short, quick answer, and he would have expected someone that he had confidence in to expand on some of those things that improved.
I mean, that was
say different words, like be really clear and say, no, yeah, I really like the job that he did this season. He made these changes or whatnot, like really back him, you know what I mean? Because CJ Stroud, when you listen to what he said about Bobby Slowick, it was completely different to what D'Amico said.
Yeah, he was more outgoing about the compliments or the way that he gave compliments to Bobby.
I have no doubt that Bobby Slowick is a very talented offensive mind, but for some reason it just did not click last year with this offensive line, this pass protection in general. I know a lot of times us talk a lot about the offensive line, but it's not always offensive line. It's a group, pass protection as a whole, but it just you look at some of these other teams, and everybody is going to criticize play callers. Certainly Buffalo Bills fans right now are criticizing their play caller, who I think is Joe Brady. Would that be right?
Joe Brady, yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Okay, anyhow. But anyhow.
For me, I think
I'm just saying it just no one is typically happy with play callers, but you look at some of the fluidity of these offenses that we've seen over the past couple of weeks, and the Texans offense just had very little fluidity. And I think the pass protection, it really starts with that because when CJ has time, he's able to do things. When he doesn't have time, it goes very, very badly.
Yeah, I was going to say, to me, I think a lot of it had to do with the design of the plays, right? I just feel like, and the choice of plays he called in certain moments. A lot of times where it was, third and long, and he was trying to run the ball, right? And just the design of the plays, not getting creative, or just, like you mentioned, fluidity. It just never seemed like the offense really could move the ball easy. Like, it was always a struggle. It just seemed like, man, they're struggling so much. Although I think in the Chiefs game, they didn't look that bad. Actually, they were pretty good,
Well, they had that 80-something yard drive, but to your point, there's a handful of those drives throughout the season.
Yeah.
That's not a consistent thing. I think Seth said it really well on his YouTube channel. Seth Payne, the former Texan, Sports Radio 610. He said that Bobby is a very smart guy. He has no doubt that he's a very smart guy, but, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that there is maybe a disconnect in not just being a smart guy, smart coach, but then being able to implement and execute those things, those ideas, those schemes that you have. And so the fact that Bobby is a young coach, maybe he lacked some of the command that an older, more experienced, seasoned play caller might have.
Yeah, I think experience has a lot to do with it. That's why I think the Chip Kelly possibility is a good one because of all the experience that he will bring. But however, also, and to go back to what you said earlier, D'Amico, props. He made the call. Okay, probably a tough one. But now we're gonna see. Okay, was it really Bobby Slowick? Because next year, whoever it is that is the offensive coordinator, they're also getting a new offensive line coach, right? We'll see. Was it the coaches or is it the players? It is a personnel problem. Because now you bring in a whole new scheme, a whole new offense or whatnot, and if the problems continue to be the same, then you can't continue to blame the coaches.
Well, I look back at where this team was a couple of years ago, and certainly having a CJ Stroud changes a lot of things, but Nico Collins was not the player that we know he is today with the old regime. Some of the output that you were getting from some of the guys because they go other places and they do a little bit better. So I thought a lot of it was on the coaching. But you bring up a good point. We will soon see, is it the talent or is it the coaching? Because there's always this thing, and I go back to baseball a lot, scouts will always be not upset, but will always say something like, this guy has talent. Why can't these coaches get something out of him? And then the coaches will always say, what did the scouts see in this guy? He can't play. And the scouts in turn will say, well, it's your job to coach him up. So there is this interesting dichotomy that happens in sports. Now the question is, when will we see a new hire? Certainly things will slow down during Super Bowl week, but that doesn't mean that the rumors won't be out there. But do you think that the Texans will have somebody in the next week or so?
I think so. I think it gets done at least in the next 2 weeks. I think it gets done before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Seahawks just hired, Kubiak's son,
Clint Kubiak
from the New Orleans Saints. So, and he was one of the candidates for this job. So,
or at least one of the names that people thought, okay, this guy could be a fit. Obviously, because of family ties.
Yeah, so I think the Texans can't really just take too long or take their time, right? Because then people will start.
Then you end up like the Dallas Cowboys.
Names are flying off the board.
But if I can go back and add something else, I mean, look, we talk about the offensive line and the job that they did this year, and I bring up the question, okay, next year we'll see, is it a personnel issue as far as players or the coaches? You guys mentioned earlier while we were watching this Bills-Chiefs games, these teams look like they can put in anybody at the offensive line and they get it right. And the Texans couldn't get it right no matter who they were putting on offensive line. So I think to me that kind of goes to that. I think, is it the players? Because if other teams are able to do it.
Scheme? Maybe they don't have the right guys for the scheme?
To me, maybe. But I feel like it comes down to discipline. Discipline and focus. These players, something's happening where they're just not focused 100% during the game. And that's when they get beat. We saw how they kept getting beat on stunts.
Maybe not focus. Maybe attention to detail. You think that's a better way of saying it?
How about the way that technique translates into those schemes? I feel like it does come down to coaching, but I feel like there's some disconnect in implementing whatever technique it is they need for certain schemes and applying it in the game. I just think that something was not sticking with these guys from practice to the game.
That could be it. I mean, to me, when I bring up like discipline and if focus is not the right word, remember how many penalties they were getting?
Well, yeah,
that's
offensive
focus
line,
and attention to detail. Yeah.
Right, or they ended up fixing, especially Larry Tunsil, right?
Yeah.
He fixed it big time, but early on, it was just simple mistakes.
Yep. And then simple mistakes compound and become big mistakes, which is what we saw throughout the season. Now let's shift to baseball, where on Sunday, Ryan Presley has reportedly waived his no-trade clause and will be headed to the Chicago Cubs, confirmed by his wife, Kat Presley. Very good people. We will definitely miss them in Houston. Now the idea out there is that, well, this may free up money for Alex Bregman to come back. Listen, Alex Bregman, it's a much bigger deal than that. It certainly helps. It certainly helps the Astros' cause to get some money off the books. It's likely going to cost the Astros only $6 million or so rounding up. But listen, even if Ryan Presley was still here and Alex Bregman was available and they felt they could get a deal done with Alex Bregman, I still think they would do what they could and can to get Alex Bregman here, whether Ryan Presley is on this roster or not.
That's a good point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, look, it's tough to say. I feel like there's so much commotion now. Like, it's just been talked about so much. And, Alex Bregman, now that Ryan Presley has been, it's not official yet, but apparently he's going to the Cubs. If he's leaving and, all of this, they continue to talk about, okay, he's still out there, he's on the board, he's a free agent, he's available, we're trying, the door's cracked, and all that. It's going to be like, man, all of this for nothing? Who ends up looking like the bad guy at that point if he doesn't come back to the Astros, I think the Astros end up looking like the bad guys. So I'm not saying that's the deciding factor, but also for Bregman, it's not like teams are just lining up either. Because if that was the case, I think he would have already signed by now. I think we can say Scott Boras didn't really do him a favor so far, you know. And some of the teams that are willing to sign him, you mentioned Detroit, right? You're saying, I don't think he wants to play over there. I don't think so either. We got to think about Bregman. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to win, to a championship contender. And I'm not sure, even though the Tigers, they had a good run last year, I don't think that they're there yet.
Okay, but he's the type of guy that potentially could help them get there. And I don't know if the Astros will look bad, because the Astros made it very clear about a month ago when they signed Christian Walker, and Dana Brown sat in that news conference room, and they said, well, what about Bregman? He goes, well, right now we have Isaac Paredes at third, Christian Walker at first, and Alex Bregman's a free agent. So I think they feel, much like they've done in the past with, say, Carlos Correa, they feel that they have made a competitive offer, and it's in the players' basically the player's hands to decide whether that player wants to return here. And it's pretty clear that it wasn't enough in Alex Bregman's mind, which is certainly his right. He's earned that right to become a free agent and take the offer which he believes is best for him and his family. Unfortunately for Alex at this point, it doesn't seem like there's an offer that is far and away better than any other on the table. That would just be like reading the tea leaves, because Alex Bregman is still a free agent.
Seems that he hasn't hit the buy it now threshold
Yes.
yet, right? And maybe he will in the coming days. But here's the thing I have the question about. You keep hearing the Ryan Presley trade has opened the door for Alex Bregman to come back to the Astros.
I don't
but
get that
what
one.
has changed?
Yeah.
Are they taking the Presley money, the $9 million that they would have owed him this year, and putting it into the Alex Bregman contract over 6 years? Does that
Well, if anything, I'm sure the Astros would love to basically, and Jeremy Booth, our KHOU 11 baseball analyst, mentioned this on the most recent Extra Bases, is that the Astros will try to backload a deal for Alex Bregman, because right now they have money on the books with Jose Abreu for one more year. If they could get Bregman to take a little bit less in this year, then they can do a little bit more. And when it comes to an average, or it comes to a salary for one season or years, that they would like to pay him more at the back end or the middle portion of that contract, just maybe not this year. Now, whether that happens or if Alex is agreeable to that, who knows?
I think he'd be open to it.
Well, maybe, but to that point, and that's kind of what I'm saying, is that like this amount of money that they were no longer going to have to pay Ryan Presley, is this, I'm not saying it's just, the $9 million they would have owed Presley. I'm saying, okay, maybe they would have add to that money, but are they going to make another offer? I guess that's my point. Yeah. Does this money getting off the books open their checkbook to say, hey, Alex, we've got some more money for you, so come on back?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Bob Nightingale right here, it says the intriguing aspect of Bregman's likely return. You sat and listened to Dana Brown.
Yeah.
And what was Dana Brown saying?
He said, okay, look, the door is cracked. He said, those were his words. The door is cracked, but he also called it a long shot.
Exactly.
So, and to go back to what you said earlier, when they made it very clear, the Christian Walker press conference saying, okay, look, Christian Walker, we got him now, and we got Isaac Paredes at third base. If that was the case, if that's them saying, hey, we already got our third base, and Alex didn't take our offer, why entertain this now?
Well,
why come back and entertain it? Like, that's
my guess is because Scott Boras called them up and said, hey, what do you think of this?
So then I think if we try to break that down, there must be a real possibility. It must be to the point where Scott Boras and Alex Bregman have come back to the table and said, okay, look, this is what we've gotten. You obviously have not received an offer that's a no-brainer, that says, okay, you know what, I'm going. Don't even no questions asked. And evidently he would like to still be here, right? So I think there might be some new negotiations. I do think that the Astros maybe have to bump it up a bit, and that's where what you're mentioning comes in. And
I don't know if there has to be new negotiations. I think the Astros, from what Jeremy says, basically put an offer on the table that they feel is probably not their last best, but maybe their last best offer. And okay, maybe there is some wiggle room, maybe. But I got to believe that the Astros feel like much like they did with Verlander, they said, here's what, and Carlos Correa, here's what we're willing to do.
And I tip my cap to the Astros for having that mentality in a market, in a sports landscape where it just seems like players just are able to get more and more and more and more. And the Astros say, we're going to draw this line. And that's fine.
Right. Look, and I think the bigger point there is that they continue to get it right. Right? Springer left.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part, they have.
And now when they've made the offer to Bregman, he didn't take it, and they're willing to say, okay, go and see if you can get something better.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened.
Right. Yeah.
So
Right.
they somehow continue to still to get it right.
Boy, and we've talked about all this without mentioning Jose Altuve in left field. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for us here in the KHOU 11 newsroom. Thank you for joining us here. This is a little impromptu sports talk, again, with Sports Extra not airing tonight due to a special edition of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. But again, you can watch us every Sunday night, 10:30, right here on KHOU 11, and of course on the KHOU 11 Plus app. All right, that's going to do it for Zack, Luis. I'm Jason. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you later on. Good night.